You're listening to Well Met,
Well Met,
a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com.
Well Met.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 61. 61 freaking episodes of Well Met. We are a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com, headquartered out of Denver, Colorado. I am John Horstman, and with us, of course, is the crew. First from Saskatoon, Canada, it is Kevin Hovdestad. Hey, Kev.
It's good to be here, John. Although I'm curious, headquartered, really? Like, I know that you are really happy with your new environment.
The headquarters.
But headquarters?
It's
like,
the headquarters.
You make it sound like you're a supervillain, man. I don't know.
Maybe I am.
That would explain a lot, actually.
It explains so much, really. That nodding head over to the right would happen to be from Kansas City, J.R. Cook. Hey, J.R.
Hey, John. 61 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. That's more than 60, if you would believe it or not.
Really?
Yes.
Really? That's the one you're going to go with, huh?
That's the one.
That's all you could come up with in a pitch is more than 60. Oh, man.
Not as much as 76.
True. I can't wait for the
61.
episode 76. This is going to be the shirt, although the yellow bleeds through in the green screen a little bit. That's kind of funny. Yeah, well, hey, welcome to episode 61, guys. Hey, everyone in chat. Hey, JR and Kevin. We've got a great show. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. And before we jump into the thick of it, I want to hear about your guys' weeks in Hearthstone. And JR will give you the honors this week.
And I had a lot of work this week, but I played a lot of Hearthstone this week. I decided to try to make that push to Legend. I'm like, okay, I got to rank 5. Let's see if I can hit, Legend this week. I got all the way up to about rank 3. I don't think I hit rank 2. I might have. But there's a lot of Shaman hate, like especially this weekend. There's a lot of Shaman hate right now on the ladder, and that's what I was playing was Hybrid Shaman. Made a lot of people very upset as well if you follow my Twitter feed at all. I've been posting a couple of the people that have added me there and let me know how much fun they've been having with Hearthstone.
I love those, by the way. The salty messages you get. Nobody gets more friend requests than you of just people who just want to rip your face off. It's absolutely maybe one of the highlights of my week pretty consistently.
Yeah. I see them as just wanting to give me an internet hug. I mean, I don't think they're really trying to be malicious or anything like that. They're just being friendly Hearthstone players that want to tell me their thoughts on why they think Shaman is not the class that they would choose to play.
Yeah. Let me know how that works out for you.
They do have strong opinions on that subject, I've noticed.
Right.
Oh, man.
However, since there's been so much Shaman hate, I did fall a little bit. I am not getting the win percentage that I was getting earlier in the week. The meta has, I believe, sort of shifted during this weekend. So I have made a switch over to Tempo Warrior for now, and I'm going to see how that kind of plays out at the moment. Because Shaman's just not getting the job done right now.
Sure. Kevin, how about you, man? How was your week in Hearthstone?
It was okay. There's a lot going on right now. I had sort of a couple of days where I just didn't have the energy to really focus on the game very much. But before that, I was trying to just do a bunch of deck experimenting. While the meta is still in flux, like JR said, I'm still trying to experiment with a bunch of different decks. So I cooked up a standard friendly version of Egg Druid to see if I could make that work. Spoiler alert, without Nerubian Egg, it's not as good. I tried to make Tempo Mage work, and I know we talked about that a little bit last week. Tempo Mage actually doing quite well for some people, but I think the problem right now is that there's just too many big minions, and Tempo Mage doesn't have enough things that answers big bodies. It was great at dealing with tokens and little bodies and even little Death Rattle minions, but it's really hard for you to answer in particular things like Shaman or the speed with which Zoo can get big bodies out on the board. So it's struggling a little right now. And then I was actually playing around with Hunter a little bit most recently. And Hunter's in this weird place where no one's running any early game, which is really confusing. Instead of playing Face Hunter or like an aggressive curve, like an old school hybrid Hunter, because there's no Mad Scientist, because traps are really weak. Everyone's just running the big minions and hoping to get some kind of crazy like Tundra Rhino into Call of the Wild nonsense. And you can win some pretty incredible games with the burst, but it feels like you win games you were going to win either way, and then you lose a whole bunch of other ones. So I haven't found anything I love yet, but I'm going to keep just messing around, because until the meta settles a little bit, this is actually a fun time to just try new things and see if you can cook up something that you're happy with. So that's where I'm at. What about you, John?
I'm doing so good up at rank 14 right now. It's just been easy breezy. Running a Reno Cthulhu Mage, which is really fun. Ran a little Temple Warrior, got a little Zoolock in there. Not really playing a whole lot. I would say I completed my move because I turned in my keys to my other apartment today, and all my stuff is here, but I still have some unpacking to do. So I've been doing a lot of that. Katie and I did a live stream where we were playing Would You Rather last night, and then playing some, it was Cthulhu Druid, which was kind of fun. And so, you know, that's kind of the stuff I've been up to this week. I'm planning on playing a bit more starting tomorrow, when I get a little bit more time and I can sit down for more than 5 to 10 minutes, or I'm not doing my stream stuff. So other than that, though, pretty solid overall. I had a lot of fun watching the all the tournaments and stuff going on this week, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But before we do jump into the news, we do want to take a second to thank our friends of the show, Martin Z, Albert T, and Sean G. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you want to find out more, head over to patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. See how you can get involved. Let's talk about news.
This week in Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft.
Kevin, I feel like it would be an absolute shame if we didn't have you talk about this one first. Tell us a little bit about the Hearthstone Championship Tour EU preliminaries, if you would, please.
I would love to. So we did see the EU preliminary, the spring preliminary run over the course of the weekend. There were tons of very, very cool games. Some players that we were hoping to see get through that didn't. Some players who I think very deservedly were very successful after some very, very innovative stuff that we saw over the course of the weekend. Some stuff that I think as players we're probably going to find frustrating, just in terms of what was successful and what wasn't. But I don't know. On the whole, I thought the tournament was really good. The casting balance was really well done. And I think there's just a lot of uncertainty still, even at the pro level, as to what's going to work reliably. So I don't know. The one thing I definitely did think what was interesting was the amount of Cthulhu that got played during the EU prelims. I didn't expect to see anywhere near as much Cthulhu as we did. But yeah, before we go into some of the like specifics of what people brought, what did you guys think? Like, did you enjoy the tournament?
I always enjoy the Blizzard stuff. Like, I think they do a really good job with all the casting and all the talent. It's not so rehearsed that some of like the first ones that they've done, they were like so rehearsed. It's like, okay, guys, just read it off the cue cards. That's great. But they've really kind of hit a groove. They're doing some really cool mini game stuff. I love seeing all of the different decks, even though there's not as much variety as I thought I would have seen, considering we're so close off the heels of standard. But overall, like, I thought there was some really great decks. I really was excited about Jackie Chan bringing some really cool Yogg, Saran, Druid. And so some really cool decks. I think that's the one that has the, oh man, what's it called? I always forget it. It's the Wisps of the Old Gods in there, which is that stupid 7 mana summon 7/1/1 Wisp or give your minions +2/+2. And so I thought that was pretty cool to see that card finally be played. And he's always done an awesome job innovating around Druid. And that egg Druid that Kevin was trying to make work originally came from Jackie Chan. So it's good to see him. Good to see him in the tournament. I don't know where he's at right now, but love seeing his decks. What about you, JR?
I did not get a chance. Like, this weekend was extremely busy for me. I did not get a chance to actually watch the tournament, but I was following a little bit on how the rankings were playing out, and also what deck lists were being played. The biggest surprise to me out of everything, though, was like the names of who ended up in the top 8. Like, the only name that I personally recognized was Tice. We didn't see any of the other big name hitters, I felt, in EU actually getting that top 8, or even names that I even recognized from the last preliminaries making it. I haven't checked to see and verify, across the names and who's been in, who hasn't. But Tice was the only name that I personally recognized.
Some of them are pretty big name guys. Like Loyan has had a lot of stuff going around as far as like innovative decks that he's been trying to popularize. Wonder plays for SK. I think is pretty well known. His actually was the deck list I was alluding to earlier. He ran four decks, and 3 of them were Cthulhu decks. And I know that there were a lot of people who were like, really? You're just going to run Cthulhu everything? But I mean, it clearly worked for him. He finished top 4. And much as what we've seen in previous tournaments as well, lots of big names were eliminated really early. You're right. Because, I mean, if you were to look at the list of people who played in this tournament, you'd see current world champion Ostkaka, guys like Zixo, Kalento, Stansifka, Sho. None of them made it.
Yeah.
Ostkaka was close. Ostkaka was close. He was out of qualifying by 1 round. But I mean, everybody else, like even people like just looking at the brackets, like Hoy and Kalento out in like the first couple of rounds of the winners bracket. Show made it a little further, but yeah, just it's rough. I think this is especially right now. It's indicative of the fact that before for the winter prelims, it was like you're playing a solved meta, and a lot of it just came down to in some cases, who got the right draws when they needed them. And then now it's the total wild, wild west. Nobody has any idea what to expect. And they're just playing a lot of decks. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but they're playing a lot of decks that kind of gamble on, will I curve out into the right answers? Kind of almost Secret Paladin-esque. Just, do I get the things I need on curve because I don't have a backup plan?
Well, I was like I said, I was looking through like the decks that people were playing. Those top 8, I decided to kind of break them down a little bit and see who's playing what. And I think if you look at those deck lists, like I really do think the meta is kind of straightened out right now in standard until something else new and big comes along. Because if you look at this, like everybody who was in the top 8 brought Warlock, either Reno or Zoo. It was more Reno than Zoo. I think 3 people brought Zoo, 5 people brought Reno, with one of those Reno decks being a Cthulhu variant. The next big one was Shaman, which there were 7 Shamans. 3 of them were mid-range, 4 of them were aggro. And then after that, you had Warrior was the next big one, which we had 4 Tempo Warriors brought, 1 Control Warrior, and then 1 Cthulhu Warrior. And then after that, you had a little bit of Nazuth, Paladin, Miracle Rogue, 3 Freeze Mages, and then 1 person actually had brought a Cthulhu Druid deck, which that one was surprising to me to see up there because I don't think that's a very good deck. But someone did make top 8 that had a Cthulhu Druid.
Yeah, okay, so since we're talking about it now, Blizzard published everyone's deck lists in advance this go around. So we know exactly what was brought in terms of all 484 decks that were present for the entire tournament. Most represented classes were Shaman, Warrior, and Warlock. And close behind them were Rogue and Paladin, and then there was just kind of a tiny fraction of everything else. Most common archetypes were Miracle Rogue, Aggro Shaman, Zoo Warlock, Tempo Warrior, and Nazoth Paladin were the top 5. And I don't think there's any surprises there, to be honest. I personally am a little shocked at the volume of Miracle Rogue, but I guess it's just, it works right now because there's just no Miracle hate. Although, if you haven't watched the tournament, you do go back and watch some of the VODs. There are a couple of examples that were streamed where people who played Miracle and didn't get the combo pieces they need, didn't get the draws they needed, just stalled out. And Miracle is one of those decks where you run the risk, maybe 1 in 7 games that you just never see the things you need and you can't actually get to cycling and fishing up the pieces you need. It's the same risk as most of the really cycle heavy decks have. So
nice. Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that, sadly. You guys know this stuff way better than I do at this point, so I just kind of let you guys hit it away.
Yeah, but you brought up the fact that they kind of released the deck list early, and there was some controversy around that. Did we want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So normally with tournaments like this, even with Magic the Gathering tournaments, like you usually have to fill out your deck list beforehand, but those don't normally get released until after the tournament is over, because you want the players to not know exactly what is, that they are playing and the exact deck list that you're playing. With this tournament, you could have went and looked and saw exactly card for card what your opponent was coming up against. So if you wanted to ban something, you knew exactly what it was. Granted, there's usually some reconnaissance that you could do in tournaments like this, watch other events or watch other players play against each other and then kind of see what they're playing so you get an idea. But everybody knew completely up front. And some think it was a mistake by Blizzard to do this. Some believe it was to stop some of the cheating that that Firebat on our episode we did on episode 50 was talking about. And I was wondering what you guys thought about this.
Oh, ahead, can I please?
You got it.
All right. I know that Blizzard is trying to make the best of a bad situation here, and I know that they're trying to do everything they can to make the playing field feel really level. There's been a lot of Reddit posts and stuff in the community lately, complaints about how they handled the timing of what didn't count for qualifiers, timing out when you couldn't submit deck lists. Like, there's been a lot of just controversy all over the place, and I'm sure, quite frankly, that Blizzard is doing the best job they can. Ultimately, I think this is a really strong example, though, of a place where there's only so many ways that you can solve these problems using policies. And eventually what Blizzard really needs is they need to do something in the client for this. You should be able to handle a locked version of the client that's only accessible to people who are playing in tournaments, where you can only have a set number of deck lists. You can't modify them during the tournament. You have to use that version of the client, or there's a tournament mode built into the system and they can just set up a tournament on the back end that you queue into. Like, I know that that's a lot of work for something that's ostensibly not a huge priority for them, but people are playing in small tournaments constantly as part of the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Every small tournament needs to have admins and rules and policies and procedures, and it's a huge nightmare for everyone involved. Even if I want to get together, like, we're planning on doing a little thing between my group of guys here in Saskatchewan and Maticus from British Columbia. He writes for a bunch of different other Blizzard sites and stuff. He is going to try and put together a Team BC to face my Team Saskatchewan, and we're going to run little like qualifying tournaments to do this. And I'm just horrified of like, oh god, I'm going to have to figure out like how to handle registration, how to handle deck lists, how to police all that stuff, and all to do something that's fundamentally supposed to do just for fun. I think this is a place where Blizzard eventually is just going to have to recognize that if they want to run a competitive esports scene, they need some of this stuff built into the game.
And I think, I think that's a really important thing here, is that right now it's just the tools are kind of insufficient for, so now we're having to make rules instead of just like having the way it should be. In the end, there's definitely everyone had access to the deck list, so it's not a matter of like fair and unfair as people are trying to make it, because this person has the same, like, it's not
information imbalance or something.
Yeah, it's not about that, but it's simply about the fact you take the deck building and the teching basically out of the game, especially without sideboards and things like that. You basically have, you make a specific deck to beat a specific deck, and you use a class that they might not expect, and they maybe or maybe aren't going to ban it, but now they can just see your card list and boom, just have it right up there, no big deal. And like, that's not the way I envision a competitive card game to be. but at the same time, it's the right call to make given the current state of the tools. And I think that's the big thing I would highlight is it's not the wrong thing. Like, honestly, probably having all these out there in the open is probably the right choice to make. However, it's to make up for the fact that they don't have a tournament mode, they don't have a client, they don't have some sort of way to make sure that decks are locked in, they can't be changed, no one has access to any information that somebody else doesn't have. And so, you know, in the end, it's a bummer, but it's a necessary bummer, I guess I would say.
Yeah, right. And I've played in tournaments and I've been involved with fireside gatherings, and this is a very, very common problem. And just even those small events like this that don't even really matter. Kevin said are just playing for fun. I have had instances where I played against people earlier in the tournament, and they saw what my deck lists were, and you know what I was playing. And I would play them later in the tournament, like when we go to top 8 or something like that. And they're playing completely different decks that are modified to tech exactly what I was playing against. And I had nothing to prove one way or the other that they did that. So it's one of those things that I just on all levels that I feel that Blizzard really needs to fix within the client itself and be able to support these kind of gatherings, especially with them pushing fireside gatherings in these tournaments as much as they are.
Right. I mean, locking deck lists in advance isn't actually a mandatory thing. There's nothing to say that they couldn't change the rules to say you have 10 minutes before every game to build your new deck you want to use, and there's no rules on class restrictions or anything else, and just make it the wild, wild west. But that's not what they want. That's not conducive to a competitive environment. And to John's point, I do think that the big difference between most esports and things like traditional strategic games like chess is that information imbalance is a huge part of them, right? You don't get to see your opponent's hand face up. You don't know what cards they have in hand. Having their deck list gives you a bunch of information you're not intended to have to try. It's part of the skill set of playing the game, is having to try and calculate for all the possibilities of what they could be running, not knowing what they have going in. That's a huge part of how we differentiate like top tier pros from people who are just really good at the game. So,
and you know automatically, like if they're, for example, if they're running like one board clear, like one brawl or two brawls, that makes a huge difference. If you see the first brawl and you have it written down, like, well, there it is. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Whereas if you're playing in a normal game where you don't have that information, you don't know. You might play a little bit differently. So it does very much affect the outcome.
Right. And that playing around potential outs and outcomes is a huge part of even how we coach people on the ladder. Like, it's just part of the game. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that this is an interim solution to a problem that Blizzard has a vested interest in doing more with, because as much as Hearthstone is supposed to be this casual for funsies, everybody just has a laugh because they lost to a 0.1% chance of Yogg-Saron doing something stupid type of game, there is an element of competitiveness to it, both in terms of the competitive scene that they're trying to drive for esport purposes and just how we play the game. I mean, fundamental to the game is that it's designed to be played competitively, one player against another player. Sometimes you can play those things for fun, but the whole like genesis of the game is you are playing a card game that involves playing against another person. Ergo, it's always going to be competitive, and they do need to do something about it.
I totally agree. Let's move on a second here, because there's another hot topic that has kind of been fresh on the heels of these big Hearthstone tournament, and that was at DreamHack. Terrence M, not a well-known Hearthstone player, but a great Hearthstone player in the competitive scene. He's been brought up time to time. Had some couple, I think top eights, maybe top 4 or 2 finish, and basically. The bigger situation is Twitch chat. Terrence M played really well at DreamHack, but
got second.
Yep. And while I don't know how to really say it, but in the end, Twitch chat ended up being Twitch chat is a problem in games in general. We've seen it from time to time. Hatred, racism, sexism, whatever you want to call it, it's always been there, and Twitch has always been kind of a company to kind of say, you know, the streamers control their chat experience for the most part, and they can appoint moderators to help that, and only the most extreme of offenses are something that's actionable beyond the actual streamer itself. So Terrence M, doing great and stuff. And Terrence M is he American? African American?
Yeah.
I think so. And so I guess I'm ignorant too, I guess. But, and so there's just a lot of hatred in Twitch chat, and there's been this new kind of call to what's going on with Twitch and Twitch chat, and if they are doing the right things and taking all the necessary steps to make Twitch chat a positive thing and not a negative thing. We all have those friends, or we might be those people who we go into a big streamer's chat and we just, turn off chat completely and just watch the stream. We also maybe have friends who are part of the problem. I hope not, or at least I hope you're working on them, putting them in line. And so we kind of wanted to take a little time to chat about this and what we really think the solution is, if there is one, because I know the community is pretty divided about Twitch chat, how it should be policed, how it should be run. And we just wanted to talk about it here for a couple minutes. And so with that very broad platform, I'll give it to you, Kev, to kind of start and give your 2 cents.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit of backstory, just so we're all on the same page here. Filewich was the author of the article that went up on Gosu Gamers, and she basically said she was part of the moderation team for DreamHack Austin's Hearthstone chat, and it went very poorly. They admit upright and upfront that they didn't do a good job. But having said that, the amount of work that they were being asked to do was sort of unreasonable because Twitch chat was awful. I've had this out with people all over the place, and I know that endemic to the whole concept of Twitch is this idea that it's a two-way stream of information, right? I stream my video and my audio to you. You in turn can chat back to me. And when I stream to 25 people or whatever, it's awesome that I can sit there and talk to my friends while I'm playing games, and they can ask me questions about what I'm doing. It's an incredible experience, and it's really positive in those types of smaller environments. But for whatever reason, like everything else on the internet, once it gets to a critical mass of people, someone just starts being awful, and someone becomes several someones, because if he can get away with it, I can get away with it. And it just snowballs out of control. And by the time you're watching a stream that has 1,000+ people on it, it's vile. I don't turn Twitch chat on. I disable it. I have no interest whatsoever in seeing what's going on in there in streams that are for major events, especially because it's truly just disgusting. And I think it represents all the things that are wrong with the internet and how we behave when we can do stuff behind a screen. Having said all of that, I think Twitch needs to take ownership of this a little bit better than they have. We're at a time and a place where if you say something awful or terrible on even an anonymous platform, like a Twitter or a Reddit or whatever, it can still be reported. You can still be actioned. They can still do something about it, because bottom line, asking people to voluntarily police this is insanity. And we're talking about things that verge on hate speech in some cases. This is not just somebody saying oh, John's got a funny looking nose. They're not just friendly ribbing anymore. It's serious. It's gross. I have been pushing strongly the opinion that basically for any large scale professional event, they should just disable it. And it just shouldn't be a thing, because when those things are being promoted actively by companies and sponsors and major teams and brands, no one wants to be attached to that. Just get rid of it and leave it as an option for individual streamers. Because you're right. If I don't want to tune in to, a particular streamer's particular environment, then that's my prerogative. But I do want to watch major tournaments and major events that are public and they're being broadcast to the public. And I made the point, actually, I made a post about this on Facebook, and I basically said, if you and I want to sit behind our TVs and yell at the screen and say awful things about people playing a sports game, about a hockey player we think is too tall or wears his skates funny or whatever, we can do that. But if an entire stadium full of people start doing that, we call it a riot and we send in the police. That's how you handle that kind of behavior at that kind of scale. I think this is an instance where Twitch needs to step in, and it needs to never happen again.
I think Twitch's response to this was interesting, because they basically said we provide the tools for the broadcasters to be able to filter this kind of stuff out. And in this case, DreamHack didn't even do that. And Twitch said, there's the tools there, and they weren't even using them to begin with. And so Twitch is a little correct in that instance. I do think they also need to own some, have some ownership to this as well, instead of just pushing it off on the broadcasters. But on the flip side, DreamHack themselves should have, had this under control to begin with, in my opinion. And it's just the biggest thing that they need to really do. I really like the way that Blizzard does it with their tournaments, where you actually have to connect your account to Facebook, to something that you own, in order to be able to chat in the chat room. Because once people put their name on something, it's amazing how much they don't do this kind of stuff, because now they're not so anonymous anymore. And so there are some things that I think can happen in cases like these big tournaments, where the way that Blizzard's doing it with the, connecting it to your Facebook account or something like that, if you want to talk. But other than that, I'm not really sure what they can do, other than, we're going to ban these people for good. But the problem with that is people are just going to make new accounts and keep doing it. We can turn chat completely off, but I don't know if I like that idea, because I do think the one thing about Twitch chat that I do like, in a sense, is that it kind of gives you that whole kind of feel of what's going on. Because like you said, when you're in a stadium and someone makes an awesome play or something like that, and everybody's cheering, you're getting that with Twitch chat, where if someone makes an amazing play or something like that, Twitch chat just goes bonkers, and you can kind of get the vibe from it. And I think it's part of the experience of watching this kind of event. It just needs to be controlled in a manner to not let this really vile stuff get out there.
I gotta I really love what you said there, kind of at the end, JR, about, even though a big event like DreamHack or HCT, it's not a two-way stream, right? We're not interacting with the players. The mods or the casters aren't really, saying anything. Sometimes there's like polls and stuff that go up or whatever. But for the most part, it's just Twitch chat among themselves. And for the most part, toxic. But JR, I know at least you and I, Kev, I can't speak for you, we're pretty avid sports events goers. And I kind of view turning Twitch chat off as kind of the way of saying, like, being in my own seat and nobody else kind of there. And a big part of what I love going to the sports arena for, I love baseball, love hockey. Hockey's my main one. And I go there because the energy, you feed off of each other and you get excited for the big plays and you want to just yell, and you can't yell into a computer by yourself. That feels weird. I think Twitch chat fundamentally is a good thing across almost all the different types of streams, from our small little 5 to 10 person streams that we individually have, all the way up to the 10,000 person streams there. I will say, number one, I think Twitch chat's tools, while they're there, they're insufficient. They're not enough. There's so much more that they could and should be doing to enable streamers to be able to take control, and to enable companies to be able to take control of their chats. Because you're right, it's not as simple in the DreamHack situation of just, banning the people who are saying these things. There's walls and walls and walls and thousands of messages of just stupid things. Like, number one, if you're someone doing that, you're an idiot. But number two, it's not as simple as just, hit the ban button, and by the time you're able to find out who it was and scroll back through Twitch chat again, it's like everyone's onto another thing, and you can't tell how many times it's been and what all it just gets really complicated to do overall. I think there need to be better filters. I think there need to be better, like, things where, like, flat out, ban words, stuff like that are just blanket. You don't say these things here. JR, to your point, more accountability. So tying it to a Facebook or a Google Plus or a YouTube or something like that, something that ties it back to you. Now, people who want to be jerks are still going to, do that. Maybe too, it's like, if you see, 3 bans from a channel, Like your account goes to review and then Twitch says, hey, you know, you're done. The stuff that you're getting to us, you're done. Maybe they have some sort of review team where if, you know, someone's going into multiple chat rooms and spewing the same kind of hatred, maybe that's it. Cool. You've been banned from BlizzPro, Kick Tripod, and Odin TV. You know, you're done. Like, look at these messages. You've been banned for 3 reasons. You're an idiot. You're done. You're not chatting on the site anymore. Feel free to watch. Maybe there's something more like that that they could be doing. But in the end of the day, whether or not, I totally agree with turning Twitch chat, or disagree with turning Twitch chat off. I agree with the choice to turn Twitch chat off. I agree that a company who wants to hold an event, they should be able to choose if they want that on or off. I don't like that as a default or saying, oh, you're going to have too many viewers. You can't have Twitch chat because we have no way to police it. Like, that doesn't feel great. But I don't think that's what you're saying either, Kev. But yeah, I guess that's where I would kind of leave it is, in the end, we need more tools. The punishment needs to be much more severe than, oh, darn, my 4th Twitch account, I'm just going to go make another one. And then I think that they need to be held accountable through some sort of review process. And I don't think it would be that much manpower to do, especially for as big as Twitch is. I think that they can be responsible for that.
Yeah, okay. Before we drop this entirely, I think the big thing that we all have sort of circled around is that Twitch chat right now is kind of a service that's opt-out. And I think that especially for the types of events where we're trying to treat these like they are, to your point, John, major like stadium events, and they're supposed to be publicly accepting and welcoming, I think that's a place where you can say, like, if you behaved the way Twitch chat behaves in that type of environment, you would get thrown out. Like, you would have your ticket torn up and you'd get tossed out on the street. That's what happens.
Oh, I totally agree. And you'd probably get a drink poured on you from the guy behind you.
Right, exactly.
I've done that to people before around like families. There's family there, and there's this guy just swearing off and saying things. I'm just like, oh, I've probably lost over $150 of food and popcorn and stuff because of people being idiots at sporting events. But anyways, sorry.
Right. So, I mean, I honestly believe that there's no lack of way for you to talk about these things. Like, if you want to have a say, I know exactly how Eurovision went down because I have a Twitter account, and I don't watch Eurovision, but I know exactly what happened. If I wanted to be a part of that conversation, I could have been. When there's big events on, or when there's streams on that people want to chat about, if chat was disabled for the DreamHack stream, you or I could rehost it on our channel and bring people in and talk about it there with our friends in a controlled chat environment where there won't be 1,000 people yelling obscenities. Like, I think people will find ways to get their outlet to discuss. That's not the problem. That discussion will happen on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit and private forums and hosted channels, and it's not going anywhere. But the experience that's being presented, what happens and is accessible to Joe Casual of the public who just flips on Twitch, doesn't have an account, doesn't care, on Xbox, and sees all the like incredibly nasty stuff scrolling by the first time he loads it up, is like, why would I want to watch that? That's disgusting. That's the part that needs to get looked at. So, but you know what? It's fine. We said our 2 cents. Like, we're 3 white guys trying to weigh in on racism. I know that's not going to go over super well. Let's move on and talk about something more fun, shall we, gentlemen?
Yes, please.
Tavern Brawl was awesome. I would say this was the best Tavern Brawl that they have ever done. So Tavern Brawl this week is top 2. You get a deck of 30 cards, 15 each of 2 cards that you've selected. I don't think I've actually... This might be the second Tavern Brawl I've ever played for anything other than my free pack, because I had so much fun with it. JR, what did you think of the Tavern Brawl this week?
I thought it was great as well. I have, I think, 35 wins, so I played it quite a bit. I had a lot of fun trying to figure out... It was mostly the first day that it came out as well. Had a lot of fun trying to figure out some fun combos to go. And then everybody started playing Mech Warper and... can't remember the name, the Hunter card that makes mechs bigger.
Metal Tooth Leaper.
Yes. Everybody started playing that. I'm like, okay, I'm done. It was just, it's one of those things where it ended up being, if you pulled your combo off with coin, then yeah, okay, cool, you got your combo, I concede. That's kind of what it kind of had gotten to, but I had a lot of fun getting these combos out going the very first day. What's funny is I really enjoyed the Tavern Brawl. You really enjoyed the Tavern Brawl. I actually got a lot of messages on Twitter on the BlizzPro account of people complaining about the Tavern Brawl, saying it was the worst ever. So it's just another one of those things where people's ideas and choices can be very different. I don't think I've ever seen a Tavern Brawl that didn't have someone sitting over here going, "This is the best Tavern Brawl ever," with someone else going over here, "This is the worst Tavern Brawl ever." It seems like every Tavern Brawl has those opinions.
This is the only deck building Tavern Brawl I think I've ever done. I'll be completely honest. And so this is the kind of deck building that I can get behind. Really easy. Choose 2 cards. Had a lot of fun. I crushed my brother, Adriac, in chat twice. And so last night on stream. So that felt really great. So I think it went 3-0 for Tavern Brawl this week, which normally I don't play that many games either. So I'm all about it. I love things like this where they take something simple and fun and they made a mini game, right? Tavern Brawls to me, it should always feel like Mario Party, where you're just, it's a mini little game. There's not a lot of thinking that has to go done. I know people love their deck building Tavern Brawls, and that's okay with me. They're not my thing. I love the really mini game style, like, do something new that you can't do in the game anywhere else, or, only choose 2 cards. Like, that's amazing. And I think it's a great way to emphasize some of the flexibility of a digital CCG like Hearthstone.
Yeah, my favorite that I did was Doomsayer and Resurrect. Just to play and see how long it would take my opponent to finally concede and just give up, because they couldn't do anything unless they were playing, something with spells that would hit my face. They couldn't, if they were just playing 2 minions, I would just sit there and clear the board every turn on them. One of my favorite ones that I read about, though, was on Reddit, where someone was saying they would play the Murloc, the 1/1, the Tiny Fin, and then play the Warlock spell, Mortal Coil, on them. And what they would do is they'd play Tiny Fin, and then they would emote to their opponent, "Your soul shall suffer," and then they kill their own Tiny Fin and draw a card, and they just keep doing that over and over and over until finally, the person just feels bad that they're killing these Tiny Fins and concede. I thought that was hilarious.
Wow.
It was good for some laughs. I saw some stuff like that, and it was fun, right? It was very cool. I don't know. I think this is one of the best examples of something that there were lots of combos that were neat to try. Most of the games were over very quickly. The games you won or lost were decided pretty quick. You weren't sitting there playing a game that took 20 minutes to go to fatigue. You knew who was winning pretty fast. I would say this one is right up there for me with the Discover one or the Christmas one, the ones that just had a lot of fun atmosphere to them, and you enjoyed just queuing in to see what people were running. Even if you didn't win, I just wanted to see what people were going to play, because it was actually that enjoyable for me.
It's good. I'm glad we finally have something we can agree on this show, and that's a
Tavern Brawl, no less.
I know. That's why we talk about Tavern Brawl now, is just so we have something that we can all agree on.
The well-met stamp of approval.
Right. Let's talk about something we can't agree on. Tempo Storm and Liquid Hearth and all the other guys don't really have a meta report up. So we have the first annual J.R. Cook meta report number 1. And J.R., take it away.
And I should publish an article about this and just be like, here's the J.R. Cook BlizzPro meta report for Hearthstone this week. I just ranked a bunch of decks that I felt I for one, I've been seeing a lot on ladder, or have been good against other decks on ladder. And you guys might be a little surprised about my rankings this week. Number 1, I have Tempo Warrior with different variants of Patron and Pirate. And the reason for that is that has become a very popular deck on the ladder. You may not see it as often, but I think once you start hitting rank 5 and above, you see it a lot more. Mainly because it has a lot of Shaman hate. There's a lot of different things in there that can really deal with Shaman. And once we continue on with this meta report, you will see why it is the most popular, because Shaman is very, very frequent right now on the ladder. Speaking of which, number 2, I have the mid-range shaman. This is a couple different variants. A lot of them play like fire elemental. Some of them play more of the late game stuff, like the thunder bluff variant, and making your totems bigger, and things like that. More control heavy with like 2 hexes and 2 lightning storms. I believe that is the one that is more popular right now on the ladder. Number 3, we have Warlock Zoo. Which I don't think I have to go into too much. That is still a very popular deck. Number 4, I have Aggro Shaman, which is still doing very good. The reason why I have it a little bit lower is, once again, there's a lot of Shaman hate in there, and I still believe that Aggro Shaman is still very inconsistent. It can be very good if you get the right draws.
Fight me, fight me, fight
but
me,
I
JR.
feel like mid-range Shaman is definitely more consistent. Number 5, we have another warrior with Control Warrior. There's variants of it with Dragon Warrior and Cthulhu Warrior as well. That has started becoming very popular. And one of the reasons why it's up there is you never know when you go up against a warrior if it's going to be tempo or a control variant. And they play out a lot very similar very early on as well. So you really have a tough time knowing what to mulligan for. And that's why Control Warrior is so high. Number 6, and I always pronounce this wrong, and everybody makes fun of me. It's N'Zoth. Is it N'Zoth or N'Zoth?
N'Zoth.
N'Zoth Paladin.
Half of both. N'Zoth.
Yeah. N'Zoth. I don't know.
N'Zoth.
N'Zoth. N'Zoth Paladin, I have it number 6, just because it you see it quite a bit, and it's pretty good and annoying to play against. Number 7, I have Miracle Rogue, and then that is where I end my top 7 right there. What do you guys think? Do you agree with this deck list? Am I way off base?
You go ahead, Kev. You go ahead.
All right. So, I mean, I don't know that you're 100% strictly wrong in terms of what you've listed up here. And again, a lot of this comes down to power rankings and versus like prevalence, right? How often is this deck being run? I don't know what your criteria are here, so I'm just gonna say, like, I think the challenge with a list like this right now is that there's very little that honestly proves that any of these decks are top tier right now, because with the notable exception of maybe like N'Zoth Paladin and Miracle Rogue, most of these decks are just emergency level mid-range decks, right? They're decks that don't have draw. They're decks that rely on a very quick win. They're all that same sort of feel as like the old school non-divine favor Secret Paladin to me, right? And without any of the deck thinning, without any cycle, it's just, these are all decks like they just slap something on the board and push as much damage as they can and hope not to have to do any inefficient trading. And the only reason that half of these decks work right now is either the hate cards for them cycled out of standard, or there's nothing for mechanical counters to them, right? Of what you've listed here, there's only one of these decks that doesn't run weapons in Zoo, and the rest of them run weapons because the natural counter to weapons is Death Rattle minions. And with no creeper, with no shredder, with nothing that leaves bodies behind when you try to clear a minion with a weapon, weapons are crazy good right now, and weapon classes are just all over the place because of it. So,
and you're starting to see tech cards like Acidic Swamp Ooze and Harrison Jones make a comeback because of it.
They have to. They literally have to right now. So, I mean, I don't know that this is like a clean power ranking as much as it's just the natural order of things in the game right now. I think there's a lot of stuff that this doesn't take into account. Like, I would say Tempo Warrior probably is not the strongest deck in the game right now.
I disagree.
So if that's the argument, I don't know that it's the strongest. On the flip side, I like, for myself, look at things like Cthulhu Control Warrior, which you've listed at 5, and think that's one of the best decks in the game right now. There's very little out there that counters it. Cthulhu Warrior is another one of those decks where basically if you get the right draws and the right combos, you just win the game. Like, you drop a Bran into an Ancient Shield Bearer, that's the game. Like, there's nothing in the game that can answer that. And I think there's a lot of that going on in the game right now that just makes it feel like you're at the mercy of mulligan and deck shuffling more than you are your own deck building skills or choice in a lot of cases. So I don't know, John, what did I miss?
I wouldn't say you missed anything, but I would add a couple things. The first thing is, I don't want to say so much like this isn't a meta report or a power ranking just because it's the natural order of things. Like that happens every time a new set hits. There's some innovation going on in some classes, and the other ones are just like, what do we have with what we know, and how can we iterate it with what we have better to make it better? And it's decks that we've played, so we know them very well back and front, and they're really easy to kind of, get some wins out while other people are testing and playing, or, it does better. Like I would say right now that I would say Tempo Warrior is probably top 2, top 3 deck right now. I absolutely would say that. I've played a significant amount of it. Some of my friends have been playing it. I believe it was either Freshka or Orange. One of the two were running a Tempo Warrior to top 25 and talking about how great it was against kind of whatever else is being played right now. So like, I think Tempo Warrior is right there. I think I personally, I still like aggro shaman over mid-range shaman. But I know that you and I have never been able to agree on mid-range and aggro shaman. And so like that makes sense why that, those could be switched. Warlock Zoo, I mean, basically just got stronger. I mean, it really just did. And so, there are some decks that beat it, and those big taunt and really effective and really efficient decks, can kind of punish Zoo really well. I think Miracle Rogue is actually really strong right now. I think I would put that closer into the top 4. But overall, like for the general gist of combining what you're seeing on ladder and what's good, like I think this is a pretty solid list overall. I wouldn't have as many things to disagree on, except for like pick one, popularity, or pick, best. But in overall, like I think the general sentiment's pretty strong. And I know for me, I'm probably going to keep running Tempo Warrior because JR says it's #1 in the game right now. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Some of this too is also because we've lumped so much stuff together. Like when you call Tempo Warrior also Patron Warrior, like, yeah, it's tough to dissect exactly what we're discussing there. Cause I would say that Patron is super well positioned right now against just about everything in the game. It's coin flipper better against everything except for like Control Warrior and N'Zoth Paladin.
Yeah. Well, right now, Tempo Warrior, Patron, and Pirate, like they all are very,
the shell is very similar. Yeah,
the shell's very similar. There's a few things different that's really hard to distinguish them. Especially when you're playing. And that's why one of the things I said is Warrior is in a crazy place right now, because when you go up against them, you don't know which variant you're going against. If it's Tempo Warrior, there's 3 different variants that you can get. If it's Control Warrior, there's 3 different variants that you can get. And you don't know which one. I think Warrior right now is in a very, very good place. That's very similar to the old days of Warlock, where you didn't know if you'd get Zoo, Reno, or Handlock.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, I think this is a cool list. And Tempo Storm, I think you can email jrcook@blizzpro.com to get to put them on the list. All right. Yeah. We got to move on because we do have a special segment this week called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
This is our town, scrub.
Yeah, beat it.
All right. So in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, we take a look at the current state of Hearthstone post Old Gods and dive into what's working, what's not, and what is, well, ugly. So basically, this is an opportunity for us to really talk about the state of the game as a whole. We're a few weeks into Standard. We've got some big tournaments coming out, and we think it's a really good time to start talking about what's working and what's not. So let's go ahead and start with the good, and Kevin, I'll let you take it away.
All right, so good in Hearthstone post Old Gods. I would say that this is it's an interesting time for the game because so much changed between a new expansion, card nerfs, formats, all the things that kind of happened all at once. Just breathed a ton of life into the game all at once. So I would say good for me would be Standard. I love Standard. I haven't given even passing thought to playing Wild at all since we got the new set and the new format. And it's done some really cool things, at least thus far, for variety within classes. Some, not all. I think you're seeing a ton of innovation where you get a class like Warrior, which is an easy example right now, and anyone who wants to can name 5 Warrior archetypes that are playable on ladder right now to varying degrees of success and based on your skill piloting them. But there's just so many cool things you can do with that class. And I think the new set really encouraged that because there's so many things that you can do with the old gods themselves, right? We're not talking about control paladin. We're talking about N'Zoth paladin, which is a very specific way to play a control style paladin. We're not talking about ramp druid, although there is a ramp druid. We're talking about Cthulhu druid and playing to a very specific win condition that way with very specific minions. And then the kind of flex that occurs in between them. Like you see mid-range style druids that don't run Cthulhu but do run Dark Arakoa because it's such a good card. And I love seeing the kind of blended styles that we've seen in all the different classes because of that. So that's awesome. I would say that for me, those are the big like positives thus far in post Old Gods Hearthstone. JR.
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest one for me is the addition of standard format against wild format, keeping the meta fresh on a now yearly basis, or even more than that. Not going to see the same old decks year in and year out within Hearthstone like we were seeing. That's the biggest thing for me. That is the good with Whispers of the Old Gods. The other thing is hashtag make Hearthstone great again, or fun again is what I wanted to use. Not great again. What am I, Trump? No, fun again. And with cards like Yogg, Saran, and just random goofy cards that can...
No, that goes into the ugly. We're not there yet, JR.
No, that's... Yogg Saran's a great card, man.
You really are Donald Trump. My God.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. We're taking the politics out of this for the second. Right. Jeez. I swear I step away for a second to turn on my air conditioner because my new studio is so hot with all these lights. And I come back to Trump and politics and was like, where did this all go wrong?
I was talking about the Hearthstone player.
Yep. Mayor of Valuetown?
Yeah, Mayor of Valuetown. He's running for president.
Great. President of, I don't even know. Okay. Okay, so the good. I'm right with you guys there. Standard's great, class variety, some really good stuff coming out of there. Let's talk about the bad. JR, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
I think we all kind of agree with this. The bad would be still net decking is still really, after the first initial week of everybody trying out the new cards, now everybody is finding what the main streamers are playing, finding what's happening in tournaments, and then everybody copies that and just plays that and stifles innovation a little bit. I don't think there's any way really that we're going to be able to ever get around that, because that happens in every collectible card game that there is. But we definitely listed it as one of the bad. Kevin, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I mean, to a point, yeah. I think the challenge with net decking isn't so much that it's a successful way to play the game, because I'll be the first person to admit I do it all the time, right? I look up people's deck lists, I try them, I modify them, I play with them. Like, I think sharing information is one of the things that makes Hearthstone so cool, is that we're just all talking through all the different ways to use these same cards. For me, that's really a byproduct right now of really limited counterplay. And I know we've talked about this at some length previously. I'm of the opinion, and I know that it's not an opinion that Blizzard currently shares, but I want to see more counters to things, right? I love the concept of counterspell. I love the concept of preventing actions. I love the concept of creating answers. So in Hearthstone, we know that there's always going to be a player asking a question and a player who has to answer it, right? So it's who's got the board, who's got initiative, who's ahead, who's going to make a tempo play versus not, who's got card advantage versus who doesn't. And right now, there's just so little decision making, right? The way the game exists today with the type of decks that are popular, there's no counterplay, right? There's no hate cards to stop Miracle. There's no tech cards to answer board flooding. There's no neutral cards with really great taunts or really great healing or anything that lets you actually play towards any kind of win condition other than slap down the best thing you can every turn and pray. And I think that's really obvious when you look at the popular deck lists, right? You have to play either stuff that is efficient on curve and makes use of the most efficient removal possible, which right now is weapons, or can cycle through your entire deck and stay afloat while you're doing it, which basically means you play a miracle deck or you play Control Paladin, because other than N'Zoth Paladin, I don't think there's a single deck in the game right now that can actually sustain and survive long enough to get to a point where they can play a late game win condition. I don't think there's a single one. Everything else is sort of beholden to that mid-range contest the board stuff, and there's just not enough ways to answer it. Like, if I want to play a class that doesn't use weapons, I'm in a real rough spot, because all I can hope is to draw into weapon removal, and that's not enough counterplay. There's not enough things you can do that say, I want to plan my deck and my gameplay around having the answers to what my opponent's going to throw out, and not in a gimmicky, like, I'm going to run Blood Knight just in case I see a ton of Divine Shield sort of way.
So I agree and disagree. I definitely think counterplay is an issue that Hearthstone has and will probably continue to have for the near and maybe semi-distant future. It's tough. It's not as, simple as just making more, like we always talk about Lotheb and loving Lotheb. And at the same time, there are plenty of people out there who hate Lotheb and it totally, breaks other people's decks and things like that. And there's always people kind of arguing back and forth. But to Kevin's point, the part that I really agree with is there is so few ways to counter a deck, even like weapons, right? So I want to play a non-weapon class right now, and I want to have a chance to beat a weapon class. In most cases, the way to beat that is to find a way to stymie their weapons one way or another. What are the ways to really do that right now? Weapon removal. So you've got 2 cards in the game that really stymie weapons, and the rest of it is kind of, some would say like, well, taunt, really does well against weapons. And you're like, yeah, kind of, I guess, but you don't put in taunts just so they don't, you choose which minion they attack into. And so I definitely get that there's this lack of counterplay going on. And again, like, I think the vision for Hearthstone, we've said it in the show in the past, and what I would like to see is, we've always had this conversation when a new card comes out. It's, oh, well, this is a win more card, or this is a come from behind card. And there's still in Hearthstone, there's not enough. Okay, we both have minions on the board right now. How do we play against each other to win a game? Instead, it's very much, he removed me on turn 2 and he removed me on turn 3. Has 2 minions on the board, I have 0. The chances for me to come back are pretty slim to none. And I think that's the worst part, I think, for me right now. And maybe it's just comeback mechanics. Maybe there's not enough ways to come back into a game. And at the same time, you make a comeback mechanic too strong. And it's like, well, why do I even bother building this board and doing all this stuff when a player can hit a flame strike and boom, it's done? Or player can just 9 mana fire, pyroblast in my face at the time. And then, or 8 mana, right? 8 mana of Pyroblast, and then do 2 mana, another Frostbolt, do 13 damage. And I totally get that. But I guess that's the only thing I would add to the net decking thing is or not net decking, counterplay thing, is I think it's really complicated on what that actually looks like beyond just you play a minion, I play a minion, I remove it, you can't remove it, and then boom, we're done. I win.
Right. I mean, the one thing I guess I want to highlight in this conversation is my one singular fear with standard format and the way that the game works right now is that we've introduced format rotations, but because we have those consistent core basic and classic cards that are going to stick around forever, that we might fundamentally be hung with the same core archetypes forever. And we're basically just going to go through cycles of whether there are or aren't hate cards for those archetypes, right? Right now, we're living in the golden age of Miracle Rogue all over again. And you have to remember that in early Hearthstone, Blizzard solved, or tried to solve, Miracle Rogue and Freeze Mage by nerfing those cards, make them more expensive, introduce things that target them very specifically. Now, even with the increased costs, because there's so few efficient ways to answer them and there's no hate cards to stop those particular strategies, they're still prevalent, and we're in an oppressive Miracle Rogue meta all over again, where it doesn't win as consistently as it used to because some of the cards are more expensive. But at the end of the day, I mean, are we just going to have to deal with Miracle Rogue being the best deck in the game every 3 years? Because that seems insane, that it'll just come and go based on whether or not the hate cards are in rotation. And they're just going to have to reprint something that resembles a Lotheb or a Bomb Lobber in the future, or else this deck exists forever, right? Like, I think they do need to give some serious thought to how do we make it so that the game doesn't just feel fresh right now, but feels fresh on an ongoing basis, because there's a lot of stuff being played right now. Like, I if you look at the meta right now and you just take away the fact that we're playing the old gods cards, you're seeing tempo, like face style tempo warrior, you're seeing Miracle Rogue, you're seeing a control paladin. Like, you could just call anybody who played Hearthstone in like late 2013, early 2014 and be like, hey, what decks are you guys playing? And it would be the same lists. So
what? Okay. I don't think you can get away with that one. That felt a little bit far. I get what you're saying, but this is not a 2013 meta by any means. Blade Flurry still doesn't.
Zoo Warlock, Miracle Rogue.
Okay, is Zoo Warlock ever going to go away without taking the core away from Zoo? It's probably not. Zoo will probably always exist in some
conceptually.
State and form.
A board flood Warlock deck will always exist because that's what the hero power facilitates. For the same reason that Freeze Mage will exist until they don't freeze minions. I get that, but there's just things about. I'm not saying take Zoo away. I'm saying do things that make it so that other types of archetypes emerge, and we don't just play the same things every couple of years as sets come and go.
So N'Zoth Paladin, Jackie Chan's new Druid with, I think there's a lot of new stuff coming out here that's going on. Now you're totally right in that, especially in a time right now, people are literally iterating off of what they know versus trying to innovate something new. And part of that's just because class identity, and part of that's because it's new, and part of it's because, well, they're winning, and until they stop winning, people are, why would I make something different than a Zoolock when Zoolock is doing so well? Like, what's the incentive for me to do that?
Right. Okay. But like to your point, right? Like, Warlock has iterated. Warlock has seen Handlock, Zoolock, Demon Handlock, Reno Lock. Lots of things have been done with Warlock. That's not even a good example. You want to talk seriously for a minute about classes that need identity. What do you do with Priest? Like, even if you net deck Priest, all of those decks are fundamentally playing the exact same game type, and there is no win condition. There never has been. I have no idea what the vision is for Priest long term, much the same as I really don't know what the vision is for Rogue. I mean, Rogue, I've tried some crazy things with Rogue, but fundamentally at the end of the day, Rogue plays a modified tempo or a miracle style, because those are the only things that have ever been viable for Rogue. And it's not as good now as it used to be, but that doesn't mean that Rogue players maybe don't want other options. Like, we've
said the same thing about Shaman, and look at Shaman right now. Like,
Shaman is great. Shaman's in a cool place. Like, I love Shaman.
But it didn't used to be. It used to be in the same place as Priest or Rogue is right now.
I think Priest is next for sure.
I hope so. I really do.
I agree with you on what you're saying on that, as long as we keep these classic cards, we're going to keep seeing these get recycled and recycled and recycled every year. Keep in mind, though, this is Blizzard's very first pass on trying to do this. If it's not something that's going to work in the long term goal, long term longevity of the game or health of the game, they're going to make changes, and one of those changes could very well be some of the suggestions that we have made and other people have made, where they might start rotating out some classic cards and bringing in, like losing Lotheb was a huge deal, especially against any spell, major deck that plays spells. It's something you can plop down and go, you can't do anything this turn, just the same way that Doomsayer, which is in the classic set, can do that against minions. So I think it's something that Blizzard will eventually get to. I'm okay giving them a pass right now, since it's the first time that they've even dived into doing anything like this.
Right. And I mean, we also haven't seen, I don't think, what their long-term strategy is around card nerfs, because to be clear, if you go back and you look at the cards they nerfed, with a couple of exceptions that we didn't 100% predict in advance, all of the cards they nerfed were cards that were in the most popular deck archetypes at that exact time. Now, I remember very specifically saying that when they nerfed Gadget Den Auctioneer, when Gadget Den Auctioneer first became more expensive, that the change that card needed was to ignore zero cost spells. It should say every time you play a spell that has a cost, draw a card. And that would solve the miracle flipping situation and all the things that made it suck. Stuff like that might end up back on their radar. They might just say, you know what, we don't want to reprint Lotheb every year, so we're going to do something about Auctioneer. That's how we're going to fix this problem. And they'll probably do that once a year. So we might just be hung with it for 2016. And then for next year, for the next rotation, they're going to go, that sucks. Everything about that sucks. So here are the 10 cards that we're going to knock off and fix out of Classic and Basic that have continued to make certain archetypes mandatory to deal with and continue to print hate cards for. Here's an actual long-term solution. Right? Nerf Force of Nature. Don't, wait until there's 11 different ways to answer charge-based spell minions.
Right. Well, and one last thing I'll add, and then we'll get to the ugly point here, is this, whether or not, this is still a bad part of Hearthstone. We're talking about it under the bad, but it's still significantly better than where we were. Up before Aggro Shaman, do you guys remember where the Shaman decks laid in the meta reports?
Yeah,
the
very bottom, the whole thing. It was blue. Yeah. It was just blue.
It was the shaman tier.
Shaman.
It was shaman tier.
And at least here, you're right. Priest doesn't have a great identity. And, we've seen there's a couple of like cool OTK priests that are coming back because silence is a bit harder to come by and not many people are running BGH. And like, I think there's still innovation there where, we can start bringing back those types of cards. Inner Spirit, Inner Fire, things like that. But, at least Priest has a deck. I mean, and this is a meta snapshot, so you can we disagree with them all the time, but they at least have a deck list in tier 2, a Dragon Priest, and it still is a fine deck, that's for sure. But you're right, it's just it's kind of this outlast your opponent and then eventually just overwhelm them with, these annoying cards and dragon things. It's not a great identity to have. And it's not fun. And I don't know a whole lot of priests that are going, I love the state of priest right now. In fact, I would say I don't know a single person who's like, we think priest is in an awesome spot. So yeah. All right, let's talk about the ugly here. So the ugly, we highlighted, and we only put one thing, and it's the current ladder system. The ladder system is kind of rough, and, to kind of these bad things that we've talked about is it's stale. It encourages a certain type of deck. It discourages some innovation in new decks, because like we're talking about right now, why would you make a new Warlock deck when Zulok, when you just sub in some of these new cards, does so well? And that's kind of I think that's the next frontier for Hearthstone, is how do we make this ladder thing really truly competitive and feel rewarding and feel like you're not grinding out your 400 games to, get to legend and then make some sort of a push. And you're not, having to either play a good deck or play a deck you like and not worry about winning. And so at the high level, that's all I would add. And also, I think for the arena players, I think arena needs a rework too. I don't think a race to 12 is good enough. Kevin is, I don't know if he's down giving someone CPR or something, but he's coming back. But I think even arena 2 is just, I don't think it's enticing enough. I think whether there's some sort of ladder or it's maybe more like tournament based, or you've got some way to kind of really hone in on, rather than just, I'm going to play and I hope to get to 12 before I lose 3 kind of thing. I think they could do a lot of work there. That's it.
Yeah, no, I agree with your thoughts on the ladder system. Right now, like, anybody can get to legend. Regardless of your skill level, as long as you play a deck that you know very well and get a win percentage above 60%. It's just a matter of how many games do you want to play to get there, and how much time do you want to spend to get there. It is literally a grind, depending on how good you are, how well you're playing, and how your win percentage is looking. I think they really need to fix that. And just, I don't know if they need to fix like the monthly thing as well. But just going from 25 or wherever you end up starting after the last season's over, to go all the way to legend is it's not the most rewarding thing. Especially like I like that they added the ranked rewards to them. That made it nice. So if you only got to like rank 3 or something like that, you at least got something nice out of it. But it still feels like the true goal is to hit legend, and for most players it may not even want to hit legend. Like that's not the most enticing thing. I really like how like Heroes of the Storm is changing their system to go from a similar system with Hearthstone from 50 to 1. They're now going more with a StarCraft style system, where you have platinum and gold and copper, and you're kind of in leagues, things like that, or divisions. I would really like to see something like that with Hearthstone, but it might be, since Hearthstone is always more about being very simple. I don't know if I would ever see them going that route, because it's not a simple system, whereas the system they have now is unfortunately very simple. And that's part of the problem, I think, with it, is that it's too simple.
Kev?
I have some killer, well-met deja vu, boys, because we had almost this exact conversation almost a year ago about how the ladder system works. And I remember talking about it back then. At the time, I was still writing for Icy Veins, and I put that article about whether or not Hearthstone's ladder was too hardcore or not. And we talked about all this stuff. We talked about the fact that 90% of players can't get above rank 10. So the way the ranked system works right now isn't actually a useful barrier to anyone who wants to play competitively. It's literally just a time sink. And the fact that you have to play every month to retain your rank or recover your rank or earn your ranked rewards or whatever sucks. Like, the whole thing sucks. Back then, we were still arguing for things like ranked rewards so that you would have ostensibly a reason to at least do it every month. But on the whole, I would say there's a lot about the whole ladder system right now, with monthly resets and the amount of time it takes to actually get back to legend. Like, getting to legend right now isn't an indication of skill, it's an indication of time. And I think that that's, to JR's point, something that really makes it feel like it's not actually a worthwhile endeavor in a lot of cases. I've played other games reasonably competitively. I've been ranked highly, like, high diamond, low masters tier in StarCraft, hit rank 1 and played at high MMR levels in Heroes of the Storm. Even stuff like raiding in World of Warcraft is a, long-term thing that I had done a lot of. And when you get to a certain level, you don't really care who's putting in the most time. You distinguish yourself by skill. You want to be distinguished by whether you're good at something or not. I don't know if I could hit legend or be high ranked in a Hearthstone where you just had an MMR that persisted for a year and you only played against people of similar skill and your MMR went up or down. And I mean, we're pretty confident, right, that there's already a kind of MMR system in the game. You do get placed against people who have a similar skill level to your own.
We already know there is.
Yeah.
They've confirmed it multiple times.
Yeah. So it's not like we don't already sort of have that happening in the background. We're just forced to make the grind, which is made worse by the fact that you have to play against people largely of your own skill level, even when you're trapped at rank 17 or whatever. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that at some point, notionally, something about either the duration of seasons or the way in which you distinguish yourself in terms of skill has to change, because right now, all it is are you able to play Hearthstone for X many hours or to the exclusion of these other things or not? And I don't really care. Like, I've done Legend 3 times. I'm tempted to do it again on principle to prove that I can, but all that would mean is just not playing other games I want to play, taking time away from my social life or from other things that I enjoy. Like, it doesn't actually feel enjoyable. I want to log on and play to see how good I am at the game, not feel like I have to play 400 games in a month to demonstrate that I'm good at the game, because that's not the people who are the best at games in the world play a couple of games here or there to distinguish themselves, and then they spend their time practicing and iterating and training and refining deck lists. It's not a system that rewards anybody except for people who can play the game full time.
Well, that's the thing, is at the end of the month, and every time, the first show of the month, we always talk about, how'd you do on the ladder last month? And it's never like, I got to this level and I feel like I was, that I really learned more and got better. And, played against people I hadn't played against before. It's like, I just had time for this and I could only make it this far. And I would really like to go, you know what? I'm in the Silver Masters, tier, and I finished 30th on there. So, that was great. Last one I was in the Bronze tier or whatever. And I've grown. And right now, hitting a higher level for me is not, I got better at the game. I had more time to play. And that doesn't feel rewarding at all. And I think that's the thing that we really need to address. And so
it's also wildly inconsistent with how they describe it, right? Like when I open my little chest at the beginning of the following month, they're like, you made it to rank 5. That puts you in the top 2% of all of our players. And it's like, that's a really nice feel-good story. And that might be true for that month that you were in the top 2% of all of the accounts in the game or whatever. But realistically, no, you're not. Like, the best players are not getting stuck at that rank. There's lots of people who don't play. There's lots of people who are not going to make the grind this month. It's literally indicative of nothing but how much time you had to play, assuming that you have a better than 50% win ratio. So yes, like beyond rank 5, you do have to go positive. I get that. But a lot of that, honestly, again, can be chalked up to just, did you queue into good matchups or bad ones, right? I mean, my first legend grind I did with a druid, and I won like 85% of my games. I just got lucky, right? I got lucky in terms of what I queued into. That happens, and that's a huge part of how people get there, is just the coin flip dice roll of, what did you get queued into by the system? Some people get really lucky, and that's the end of it. That doesn't make you good at the game. I don't know. I would love for there to be a real baseline so people could actually distinguish themselves and say, yeah, I mean, we have a real ELO system like a chess or any other competitive game, and I am one of the 100 best players in the world because I do consistently win these matches in this environment where there's a little more control than right now. Because ladder, I don't know. I'm beginning to not understand what the appeal of it is. Like, I push the ladder button because I want to play Hearthstone, but the ladder itself is of no interest to me in a lot of respects now.
Yep, I totally agree. We got to get out of here, though. It's been a long show, and we just got to get out. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We did get an email this last week from Eloc. We're going to push it to next week just for sake of time. But Eloc, thank you for the email. We'll talk about it next week. Sorry we couldn't get to it this week. Again, thanks to our friends of the show, Sean G, Martin Z, and Albert T. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means the world to us and allows us to make this show and make it sound good and hopefully look good despite our faces and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you guys again for hanging out in chat. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. But first, Kev, give us a lowdown on the Patreon this month or week.
Yeah, so Patreon in a very cool place right now. We have 4 new patrons this week, and we're super thankful to Jeff F., Ralph K., Steve S., and Dan W. for joining the Well Met family. Guys, make sure you get in touch. Let's get you in our patron-only Facebook group. We got some really awesome feedback on the show in there this week. We've been trading deck lists and talking shop lots. We are actually now very close, guys, to our next big milestone. We're 92% of the way to doing an extra monthly bonus show. We'll do an additional episode of Well Met every month, just for fun, some cool stuff, topic specific, whatever you guys are feeling. We'll probably ask for that feedback, frankly, from our patrons. What do you guys want us to really drill into and spend a whole hour on this month? And we're going to be able to do that very soon. So if you're a supporter,
go ahead. JR's meta report.
JR's
meta. No, it's not.
Okay, there goes.
But to be fair, we usually put kind of our questions and discussion topics for the week in our Patreon only Facebook. And so all you have to do is give monthly and you're in that and you're just in. $1 a month, boom, you're in. Come hang out with us every week.
Right.
Yeah,
so
and go ahead. Go ahead.
As soon as we get over that hurdle, we're very excited to be in a position where we can dedicate the additional time and resources to put that extra show together. That'll mean that you guys will be getting a combined total of over 60 Well Mets a year, which would be pretty cool. So that's something you guys are into. Hit up patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. Check it out. See if there's something there that speaks to you from our reward tiers. We're doing everything we can for our backers to make it fun and exciting, and we'd love to have you be a part of the family.
And part of the feedback that we got this week, and so we're going to bring it next week. Player versus players coming back next week. We're going to do some PvP. I'm going to say it just so that I don't have to do it. JR versus Kevin.
I won't be here.
That's how you do it. Oh, no, that's right. Dang, because you are skipping out to go to the Overwatch thing, because you bought your tickets before you realized it was during the show.
Yeah, I
So
thought it was
cheesy.
in the
I could see you
afternoon.
just push the button and be like, oh man, I'm going to get out of having to do well, man.
So cheesy. All right, well, we're going to do PvP, and I guess our guest is going to judge between Kevin and I. So we'll have to figure that out as we go. iTunes reviews, JR.
Yeah, so we had some iTunes reviews this week. From the UK, we had Brossard 80. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sounds good to me. From the USA, we have Pirate Pastor Woo Hoo Ah and
Woo
Leo. So I
favorite
really
part is
like
why we
Woo
let
Hoo
JR
Ah.
do the pronunciations, because they're just so funny.
I want to hear JR read like a list of like 100 WoW character names just to hear him try to pronounce stuff.
Oh,
Right?
why do you guys hate me so much? Anyway, if you want to leave us an iTunes review, just head over to iTunes, type in Hearthstone, and you'll see Well Met on there. Click on that.
Yep.
Leave a review, and when you do, we'll read off your name. And thank you so much for those that did leave a review. You guys are awesome and help us out more than you will ever know.
All right, well, let's talk about our weeks before we get out of here. So as for me, I'm back in. I've got a normal streaming schedule now. So check out twitch.tv/kickedtripod to check out those times. And I'm actually going to be streaming tonight right after the show. So if you guys are hanging out in chat, want to hang by, play some Hearthstone, that's what we'll be doing. And besides that, not a whole lot for me this week. Kev.
Crazy week for me. Things are nuts at work. So I've been working hard on a whole bunch of cool projects, one of which is actually going to take me out of the country. So I won't be around to do the payload this week, which is sad, but I'm going to be flying down to New York City and then driving to Connecticut from there, doing a presentation, living that esports life, making my passport work extra hard. So should be fun. And I'll be back in time to do the show next weekend. If I get a chance between now and then, I probably won't because work's a zoo. But if I do, let's say maybe Wednesday, flip the stream on for a little bit. If people want to come hang out, I'll probably play some heroes. Twitch.tv/OdinTV.
Nice. And then JR for you, besides skipping out on the show to go to the Overwatch event.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip out on the show next week. You have the Overwatch event. And the reason I said that was to just make John mad because he's told me besides that. No, I want to give a shout out to all the awesome people in chat who make fun of me on the way that I pronounce things, which is totally fine.
And on the show.
And on the show, you guys as well. As far as like this week, though, Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday, haven't decided yet. Next week, if you're in the Kansas City area, head on over to Planet Comic Con. I will be there hanging out, getting to meet Stan Lee. And I am so excited about that. You guys do not understand. Like, Stan Lee is just so much of my childhood, his characters, and I am so excited to meet him. I'm going to have a picture taken with him, get him to sign some stuff. I bought like a special package to make that
him
happen.
sign a bunch of DC stuff.
That's a terrible idea, and that won't happen.
All right.
Well, thanks for that, Eldu Ryan. Eldu Ryan?
All right.
Yeah.
That's it for us this week. You can tune in together with your friends live every Sunday on twitch.tv/BlizzPro at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or find us on your favorite podcast outlets for updates throughout the week. Follow us on Twitter at WellMetPodcast, and WellMet is entirely supported by our fans. Find out more at patreon.com/WellMetPodcast. We also have merch at store.blizzpro.com. Rock those WellMet shirts, guys. I'm just saying. As always, a big thank you to Jake Buttineau at jakebuttineau.ca for our music and site designs for our graphics work. And thank you again for joining us for episode 61 of Well Met. We will see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.
Well Met is a production of BlizzPro.com. The show records live at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. To get the latest news and information about the show, follow us on Twitter at WellMetPodcast or join us on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/WellMetPodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can find out how at patreon.com/WellMetPodcast.